Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing Hazel Aden from Degrassi The Next Generation. This video is a part of my series on Black representation in Degrassi as a whole, of course. I just posted a video about Jimmy last week, so be sure to check that one out as well. But today we're going to talk about Hazel, so thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoy. Anyways, let's get started. Hazel is such an iconic character in the early seasons of Degrassi The Next Generation.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. Now come on now.
Truly such a missed opportunity on this show. We see Hazel first introduced to us in season 1, and she doesn't really have any big plot lines in season 1. She's really just Paige's little bestie, and this irks me so badly for reasons that we're already aware of. At this point in the show, Hazel is the only dark-skinned girl who's in the main cast, and it just feels inappropriate to sideline her because even at this point in the show, Liberty is getting more meaningful screen time than Hazel is, which isn't inherently horrendous, but within the context of how Degrassi treats its Black characters, it is indeed horrendous. So it's something that I cannot forgive. Justice for Hazel. Since Hazel doesn't really do that much in season 1, let's just move on to season 2 already. In season 2, we do get to see a bit more of Hazel's personality. We see Hazel support Paige and Terry throughout their respective struggles on the show. Like, we see Hazel support Paige after she's been assaulted, and she did not hesitate to tell Paige to speak up. And then we also see Hazel support Terry after she's been body shamed for being a plus-size model. I do wish that we could have seen a lot more of the Terry and Hazel friendship, just because I feel like they made a lot of sense as a friendship duo. Like, I love the concept of Hazel and Paige being besties, but I feel like Hazel and Terry being besties would have made so much more sense, considering the fact that this is a PWI and we've seen that fat phobia exists in the school and we've seen that anti-Blackness and Islamophobia exist in the school. I think it would make sense for Hazel and Terry to bond over that shared struggle, especially since they both get mistreated by their best friends as well. Ashley was so mean to Terry.
I just don't want you to regret this later. It's a big deal. I can't believe I'm listening to relationship advice from someone who's never even had a date.
And Paige was so mean to Hazel sometimes too.
See, Hazel, that is helpful. She is a helpful person.
Paige and Ashley have both disrespected Hazel and Terry respectively. So I think it would have made a lot of sense for them to be like, hey, we don't need these rude young ladies. Let's be besties together. While we're here, I do want to share a little fun fact. So the actors who play Hazel and Terry are besties in real life, which I think is really cute, and they are indeed besties because of the experiences they had on the show and because they were both sidelined. So shout out to them. Love that they came out and called Degrassi out on this. You guys can go and look it up. They seem like a really cute bestie duo. Adorable. But anyways, I do wish that Hazel had had friends besides Paige in general, just because Paige is a mean girl character. And in the Degrassi universe, a lot of the mean girls have their little bestie, right? We love a bestie. However, their bestie isn't really their bestie. They're typically just their little sidekick. And I don't really like that for Hazel specifically.
Get somebody else to do it.
Just because of her role in the show as this representation for other Black girls, I just don't think it was appropriate. I feel like it just set her up to get sidelined, which I'm obviously not enjoying. So perhaps it should be switched up a little bit, right? But again, it's a teen drama. I'm assuming they wanted to keep that mean girl and her bestie dynamic. At the end of the day, all it does is just sideline Hazel, and that I cannot support or permit. Moving on in season 2 for Hazel, we see one of her most important plot lines and probably one of the most important race plot lines on the show when we get to see Hazel's path to accepting herself as a Somalian Muslim immigrant. It's so interesting because we see her bully the hijabi girls at her school.
You're under arrest. Crime, terrorist chic. Very funny, Hazel.
Who we never see again, mind you. We never see them again, which is crazy. And we don't really see another named hijabi character until what, Goldie's character in Next Class? I think that's a little bit disrespectful. And by a little bit, I mean very. So we see Hazel bully the hijabi girls at her school. And we see them clock her a little bit too. They're like, Aden, they already know what's up. It's really interesting to see that because they already know what's up with Hazel, they do give her a little bit of grace and they don't get too mad at her. Because they would have definitely been valid to be like, what is wrong with you? But perhaps on some level they understand why Hazel wouldn't want to accept herself, especially in a place like Degrassi. Very interesting interaction between Hazel and the other Muslim students at her school. In this plotline, she also pretends to be Jamaican, which is really funny to me as a Jamaican American, because like, do I want to know why they chose to have her pretend to be Jamaican?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yes, but at the same time, I don't want to know either. Because interestingly enough, the actor who plays Hazel is actually West Indian in real life. I looked on her Wikipedia page, which again, like Wikipedia is not the CEO of information, so perhaps this was incorrect, but it says that her mother is Jamaican and her father is from St. Vincent, so... You know, I'm not trying to start any diaspora wars or whatever, but I feel as though having Hazel pretend to be Jamaican, knowing fully well that her actor is actually Jamaican, it's like, oh, well, I see why everybody believed her. Perhaps it's the truth. I understand what they were going for with this plotline, and it doesn't really change anything in universe, but I think the storyline could have been more meaningful if they had made it about her actual identity. We see Degrassi not necessarily miscast, but we see them cast people in roles that don't necessarily match up with their racial identity in universe. For example, Jimmy and Liberty, they both play characters who are not biracial, but their actors are biracial in real life. They also do this later in the show with Winston's character as well, where Winston is a Chinese character, but he's played by a Korean actor. So when I see Hazel's character have this dissonance between the actor's culture slash race versus the character's culture slash race, it just kind of leaves a slightly stale taste in my mouth, personally. Again, I'm not saying it's a crime to have Hazel play a Somalian Muslim immigrant, but the point is the message of the story still gets through, so that's the most important part. But again, not very tasteful. It just feels a little bit gaslighty, because the whole time she was Jamaican anyways. Let's just move on. It's really interesting how we only see Hazel accept herself as a Somalian Muslim after Fariza's presentation gets vandalized. Hazel also has a conversation with Fariza, and she tells her about what happened to her at her old school and how she got literally jumped for being a Muslim girl. And I do love Fariza's reaction to this. When Hazel tells her this, she's like, you sure learn from them. And you know what? Fariza is so right to say that, because I feel like Hazel definitely needed a reality check. But I think this is also a really important discussion to have as well. After this interaction, later in the school week, I'm assuming, Hazel does make a presentation for her class and she does reveal to them her true identity. And the episode basically ends with Hazel finally accepting herself. I don't know how much time passed between this conversation with Fariza and the presentation, but it definitely was not on the same day. And this does make me wish that we had seen some sort of conversation with Hazel and her parents, or at least one of her family members, or just somebody from her own specific culture who would understand her and who she would be able to talk to about this. Because yeah, Fariza told her like, hey, cut that out. But I think we also would have benefited from seeing what Hazel's home life was like and how she was able to hide this from her classmates and from her friends even for this long. I do think that the story was pretty well done. I think the right message was definitely conveyed overall. And, you know, if you're a kid watching this, you're going to take away the most important parts. But one thing that I will say about this plotline is that I wish that they could have carried this theme of Hazel's identity throughout the rest of her time on the show, because once this plotline is done, we never hear any mention of Hazel's culture ever again. And it's really weird because she mentions in the presentation going to mosque with her parents sometimes, wearing a hijab. So I'm just like, what happened to that? Where did that go? Because the marginalization of our identities does not happen in one episode. It's something that's always going on in the background of our lives, if not the foreground. So I feel as though they definitely could have incorporated that more into her character, especially since she goes to a PWI, and especially since she doesn't seem to have any other Somalian Muslim friends at the school. I do also wish that we could have gotten to know Hazel's immigrant story as well, because Hazel says that her family immigrated from Somalia to escape the civil war that was happening there at the time. We know that she was born in Somalia, but what I would like to know is, like, was she a small child? Was she a baby? Does she remember Somalia? Does she remember immigrating? immigrating. I just want to know how immigrating itself affected her, because it can be a really traumatizing thing to leave your whole family, your country, your culture, your heritage all behind, especially if it's not your first choice, or especially if you really don't have a choice and you're just trying to survive. So I feel as though this would have been, something to mention, just something to mention. Hey, just an idea. Overall, plotline's not too bad, but wish they could have continued it. Am I disappointed? Yes. Am I shocked? No. But yeah, Hazel doesn't really have any other big plot lines in this season, so let's just keep it pushing to season 3. In season 3, we do see Hazel on screen sometimes. We see Hazel on screen, right? But she just doesn't have any big plot lines for herself, unfortunately. One notable thing about Hazel's character in season 3 is that we do see her clock Terry and Rick's relationship, and we do see her notice that Terry's relationship with Rick is just simply not right. We see her notice that something is off, and I actually really like the idea of Hazel being this or emotionally mature friend. I like this concept. I wish that could have been a little character arc for her, because I feel like if you're starting off as the bestie to this mean girl, perhaps the emotional maturity is not there. But if we got to see her grow over time, especially if she made other friends, this would have been a lot more interesting, right? But anyways, we get to see her help out Terry in season 3. Loved that moment, because I feel like Hazel just notices a lot of things about her friends where other people wouldn't notice. We also see her in the Take On Me episode. Such an iconic episode of Degrassi. Love that episode. It was so good. It felt like a filler episode, but it really wasn't. It still had important plot points that pushed along the story. So really great episode. It was supposed to be a parody of The Breakfast Club. Didn't watch The Breakfast Club, never had breakfast in the club. So episode was great. Hazel was so unserious in that episode, and I kind of love seeing these kids be unserious for just a moment, because the show itself can be really serious sometimes. So it was nice to see them all just being in detention and being like, so what? The reasoning for Hazel being at detention was so funny. I'm not gonna mention it here, but you can go and look it up. She's hilarious, so funny, just deeply unserious. But I feel like it kind of made sense for her character, because it's the way she was just like, I was curious. And this is kind of where we also see the real beginnings of Hazel and Jimmy's romance. And I think that she and Jimmy were actually a good idea as a couple. Not because I support them just, coupling up the black kids together, but, it kind of made sense for their friend group at that point in the show and at that time in high school. Like, they're in the same friend group. I couldn't see Hazel dating Spinner or, any of the other guys in that class, especially not Craig. Craig is a criminal. She already tried Marco. We know how that went. At this point, it kind of made sense for her to be with Jimmy. And I think Hazel definitely deserves somebody who was supposed to be as empathetic as Jimmy. This empathy that Jimmy has does not stay consistent throughout their relationship, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I feel like Hazel definitely deserved somebody who was chill like Jimmy, because all the other guys in that class are kind of insane. I mean, Jimmy was insane in his own way, but I do also like at the end of season 3 how Jimmy tried to make their date to the dance perfect, because that's what Hazel deserves. Hello, it's Hazel. Read the room. Moving on to season 4, most of Hazel's plot lines in season 4 are set in motion by the shooting. But again, that's true for all of the other characters, besides Manny and Liberty, I would say. But we see Hazel support Jimmy through his paralysis post-shooting. And I feel like this would have been a good time to expand on her role as the emotionally supportive friend, because we always see Hazel support her friends, but it would have been nice to see Hazel's friends support her a little bit more during this time, especially Paige, because after the shooting, what is Paige busy doing? Getting groomed by Mr. Oleander. Nasty man. Nasty man. May he suffer greatly. And you know what? I'm fine with Paige having her own plotline post-shooting, but I do wish that we would have gotten to see Paige support Hazel a little bit more and be there for Hazel a little bit more, because Hazel's boyfriend literally just got shot and he's not even at school right now because he's in the hospital recovering. Where is the support for Hazel? Where is it?
I would like to see it.
And this would have helped her stay away from that black best friend trope, because one big characteristic of the black best friend is the stereotype of the strong black woman. I feel like this would have been a good opportunity to show Hazel's vulnerable side and be like, hey, she does not always have to be strong for everybody else. Give her a moment. We do get to see Hazel grieve and mourn during that post-school shooting era, but we don't really get to see the deep intricacies of how she's really feeling. And I feel like showing Hazel's vulnerable side would have definitely helped her stay away from the black best friend trope a little bit more, and it would have also helped her stay away from the strong black girl trope. But yeah, this is a really heavy era of the show in general. Moving on to season 5 for Hazel. Hazel's episodes in season 5 make me so itchy. Not because I'm itchy when I see her, I'm itchy seeing what the show does to her. Hazel's biggest plot point in season 5 is indeed her breakup with Jimothy. And I'm not into it. I am not interested. As we already mentioned before, the optics were horrendous for this breakup. Just the whole basketball, Hazel, Ellie and Art. I hate that. I know I said I hated it earlier, but now that I'm saying it again, I hate it even more and I am more disgusted because it's just egregious. They fully disposable black girlfriended Hazel, just like they did to Jimmy's mom later in the show, which is really interesting to me because I feel like the show definitely should have gone into why Jimmy thinks that he can treat his girlfriend any type of way when he's out here being the best bestie ever for all of his little friends. But when it comes to Hazel, all empathy is just gone out the window. There's no discussions to be had about our feelings. There's no discussions to be had about, hey, the school shooting really traumatized me and I feel like a different person now and I feel like you don't understand me. We could have said that instead of, I'm gonna hang out with Ellie because Ellie gets me and she does art. What, bro? Because he already had been drifted away from Hazel before he started liking Ellie. And then on top of that, we see most of this like breakdown of their relationship from Jimmy's point of view. We don't even get to see the breakdown of this relationship from Hazel's point of view. And I think it's just so upsetting. Free Hazel, free Hazel. Oh my God. To freedom! She deserved better than being the disposable black girlfriend. And the way that they broke up really makes me wish that we had gotten to see Hazel date somebody else. And even if it's not like one of the other main characters, of course, perhaps a random side character or like a new side character, give Hazel somebody else. Jimothy was horrendous to her and this is the only boyfriend that we see her have on the show. Well, she dated Marco, but like Marco wasn't dating her. I just wish that we had gotten to see a little bit better for Hazel, some better treatment for Hazel, because we imitate what we see on TV. And if we keep seeing black women and girls get treated as though they're disposable, that's what the people are going to keep imitating and that's what the people are going to believe that we deserve. I don't believe that and I don't roll with that. Let's put that away. Thank you. Anyways, moving on from this plotline because now I am supremely itchy, let's move on to her little episode with Paige and Alex. This is her last big-ish plotline in the show and it's not even about her for the most part, which again, I'm just really tired of these black characters being seen and not heard from enough because I think this plotline was actually really cute. I love watching all three of them bond together because it can be hard to accept when your best friend gets a partner or whatever, you get to spend less time with them. That's always a valid fear, especially since they were so close. I understand Hazel's fears in this episode, but I do want to say I do not support how homophobic Hazel was to Alex. Like literally relax, Hazel. Relax. And I do feel like this conflict between Hazel and Alex happened just because Hazel at this point was still so obsessed with her reputation in the school, despite the fact that she's literally gonna graduate in like 3 business days at this point in the show. I do like that by the end of the episode, they made up and everything. And I like the way we see them bond and everything together, but yeah, I just wish that this wasn't Hazel's last big plotline on the show because this is Hazel's last plotline, but Alex and Paige's characters get to stay on the show for a little bit longer. So having Hazel's last plotline not even be about her that much just makes me, you know? So after this, we don't really get to see Hazel on the show in general. I think she gets mentioned again in the next season, but she doesn't get to be in the same college arc as the other characters in her graduating class did, which was really upsetting to me because why is literally everybody else at college except for Hazel? I mean, Jimmy and Spinner don't go to college, but that's because they both got held back. But what about Hazel? I'm actually really upset about this because honestly, I wasn't really even interested in Ellie, Marco, and Paige being roommates. I didn't want to have to see that. I would have much preferred to see a little bit something from Hazel. I was just really disappointed to see that Hazel's character didn't get to have a little bit more time to herself, didn't get to date anybody else besides Jimothy. We don't even get to see that much of their relationship in general. Now that I'm really thinking about it, we don't get that many episodes about their relationship. In fact, we don't get any. Wait a minute. I'm tired. Anyways, love Hazel in general. Such a big missed opportunity for the show. Such a big loss for them and for the audience, but definitely a bigger loss for the show. Hazel was a queen. She was an icon. Hazel walked so a lot of these characters later in the show could run, and I don't want to hear any other conversation about that. Please and thank you. Let's just give Hazel the respect she deserves. That's all I got for Hazel. Thank you so much for watching. My next video is going to be about Liberty, so stay tuned for that. And be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.
Where's the flavor? Where's the flavor in this? I don't taste anything.